Thanks, Allison. I think I've moved up in the world with Allison introducing me, so appreciate that. Thanks for coming today. I've been on staff with TWR for about 3 years, and I came to TWR after 32 years in the defense industry. So this is really different for me, but I'm really enjoying this. Let me tell you a little bit about TWR. We're the farthest reaching Christian media network in the world. We produce gospel-centered content and in 230 languages, and we have a presence in 160 countries. TWR actually has a bigger broadcast umbrella than the Voice of America or the BBC. So we're everywhere. And if I can get my remote to work. So we work with over 60 ministries around the world to translate and produce Christian media into the heart language of our target audience, and then deliver it to them in the media platform that makes the most sense for that particular culture. We started off in the 50s with shortwave radio, and now we've expanded to many other kinds of media and distribution methods. So, as you can see, TWR is a globally distributed organization. We communicate in many languages. And I'm here to tell you today, I'm going to share with you how we planned and tested our deployment of Asterisk, and some of the technical challenges that we faced along the way, including cutover planning and bulk provisioning phones and so on. I'm also going to tell you about how we eased into it rather than doing one gigantic cutover. And I'm going to share with you some of the technical challenges, as I said, and then at the end I'm going to have some money-saving tips for you, because TWR is a nonprofit, and so we have to be very frugal. You ready to go? This is what we speak. This is a list of 230 languages. You're not really supposed to be able to read this. But from Asa to Zulu, 228 languages in between. So you can see why worldwide communication on a multilingual platform is very important to us. TWR has 4 regional offices, one in the United States, in North Carolina, one in Vienna, Austria for Europe, in Johannesburg, South Africa, and an office in Singapore. We also have 4 broadcast centers in Bonaire, in the Netherlands Antilles, in Mauricio, Guam, in Manzini, Swaziland, and in Benin in West Africa. We also have 2 additional European offices in Slovakia and in the Netherlands, and we have a partner office in Canada. Before I came to TWR, this is what our phone system looked like. We had proprietary PBXs everywhere, except Swaziland. Swaziland had a Trixbox server that somebody had installed many years before. At the main office, we had a Cisco call manager system with 160 endpoints, and that was really the only other VoIP system on the network. Every place else had Carol or Panasonic or Ericsson keyset systems that had been installed many years prior. So here were some of our problems. We were paying international toll charges just to call each other in the office. All of our PBXs were getting really old. There's a lot of noise on them and other problems. Because they were so complicated to service and maintain, we had to keep maintenance contracts on them. And did I mention there was no way to call from one office to another without an international toll charge? So what our goal became was to reduce the toll charges, to get new hardware in place, eliminate the maintenance contracts, and we wanted global 4-digit dialing. So our solution for this was a stepwise global Asterisk implementation. We were going to roll out Asterisk one office at a time, and we were going to use, for the most part, new servers and phones. We wanted to leverage our existing IPsec tunnels. And for local calls, we needed to preserve the local telco connectivity. In January of 2010, I worked on a prototype project for the headquarters. We knew that Asterisk could provide a stable PBX implementation at that time, but the big question was, would it work with our existing Cisco 7900 series phones? So I built up an Asterisk server, and I reflashed a couple of those phones with SIP. I connected the call manager and the Asterisk server together using an analog circuit, and then I demonstrated that to the CIO, and he was convinced that we could do this. So after proving that the Cisco phones could be used with Asterisk, I laid out a project plan for the initial installation, including a schedule, a budget, and deadlines. And the first installation at our headquarters was completed when we rolled out Asterisk on July 30th of that year. This was my installation budget for the headquarters. So we wanted to host Asterisk on new hardware, so we bought a new Dell PowerEdge server. There was no SIP load available for the Cisco speakerphones that we had, so I bought new Polycom voice stations. We also bought new secretarial phones, and I bought a Digium dual-span PRI card, and I'll talk more about that later. And I bought the hardware echo cancellation module for that too. So here's what the receptionist phone looked like while we were rolling it out. And after rolling out in the United States, at our main office, I started with the other locations. So this is just a chart showing where the installation was, how many endpoints it had, and when we did it. And you'll notice that Bratislava, that's the capital city of Slovakia, was just done last month. So I finally finished last month. And as you can see from this, from my perspective, we have taken over the world. So we have 10 servers worldwide, spanning 16 time zones. And here's a summary of our costs for the global rollout. And I'll give you a moment to look at these numbers. So if you do the math, you can see on the average we spent just over $100 an endpoint for our entire installation. The original price tag for the Cisco call manager at our headquarters was $200,000. So we've recouped 80% of this cost already just by eliminating the Cisco maintenance contract at headquarters. So frugal, yes. But I had never deployed a phone system before, so I had a lot of challenges along the way. I wanted to share some of them with you and what I did to solve them. Fortunately, this is a challenge I've never had to face, and that's climbing a 400-foot transmitter tower. So my first challenge was not knowing really where to start. I'd been a software and communications engineer for 32 years in the defense industry, and I understood IT, I understood telecom, I understood Linux, but I had never worked with Asterisk before. And when I downloaded Asterisk, this is what I saw. It's like all of these parts, and I knew I could do a lot with it, but what I wanted was something like this. So I needed that little instruction sheet. And what I did was I signed up for Digium training. And at the time I lived in Huntsville, Alabama, right near the Digium headquarters. So it was very convenient for me to attend both of the instructor-led courses, and they were very good. And after taking these courses, I took, sweated bullets over, and passed the DCAP exam. And I also make extensive use of the O'Reilly books. I wear these books out. Another problem I had was how to provision scores of telephones. And again, remember, I was brand new to this kind of a thing. So when I was doing the prototype project, I reflashed a couple of those Cisco 7900 series phones, and I uploaded those with XML and TFTP. But how could I do 160 phones worth and do it efficiently? So Bin Shell and SED came to my rescue. I built a master phone list that has usernames, extensions, MAC addresses, and all the other parameters that were needed by the phones. And then I built a template phone for each type of telephone in the system. The script reads those files in and then generates a MAC address-specific XML file for each phone. I wanted to install on a very small system and then work up towards the big ones. The CIO said, no, we've got to do headquarters first. And so cutover planning was really important. You got to remember that this was a production system for a nonprofit organization, so we depend on telephones for our revenue stream. We need the phone calls to be coming in, people to be donating money. It was at the international headquarters. I had just joined this organization, so I was very concerned about this. Now, our Cisco call manager had a single PRI to the public telco, and that gave us our 23 channels of voice. All of those endpoints, of course, spoke skinny protocol to the call manager. And back when I was planning for the installation, a DCAP friend of mine, Rod Montgomery, suggested that I buy a dual span PRI card. And so now this was going to pay off. By using a dual span PRI card, I was able to put Asterisk between the existing call manager and the telco. And all I had to do in the Asterisk dial plan was pass the calls through. So to the call manager, Asterisk looked like the phone company. To the phone company, Asterisk looked like the call manager. And I ran this way for 2 weeks prior to actually cutting over. And during that time, I trained the staff, and I was able to do some other testing on individual SIP endpoints. I recruited a couple of guys on Friday night to help with the cutover, and we reflashed each of those Cisco phones with SIP. I loaded the production dial plan where 4-digit calls went to the endpoints, 7 or more digits went out to the telco. And the Cisco phones all registered with the Asterisk server, and we finished after about 5 hours on that night. We had scheduled the rollout to take place over the entire weekend, but it went very, very smoothly. So the next morning, I retired to Cisco Call Manager. This is a picture of one of the phones after I had reflashed it with SIP. I wanted to make sure nobody mistook it for being a call manager phone. And you might ask what I did with that old call manager server. Well, as soon as I could, I reloaded it with Asterisk, and now this is running at a co-location ISP down in Huntsville. I have servers in 10 different countries, and no 2 of those countries has the same holiday schedule. So all of the examples that I had seen about doing an auto attendant and holiday closures and everything else all had those parameters hard-coded, and that was just not going to work for me. So in South Africa, they don't take off the 4th of July, and in Singapore, Thanksgiving is just another Thursday. So how was I going to solve this for the auto attendant? Well, it turns out that the Asterisk database is a great way to solve something like this. What I do is I preload the holiday schedule for each office, and I customize that for each office into database entries in the Asterisk database, and then I can use exactly the same dial plan code to process that. So in this example, the first line of the dial plan grabs the current date, formats it up into 4-digit year, month, day, and then the second line checks to see if today is a holiday. If it is, it jumps farther down on the dial plan. Otherwise, it plays the regular day menu. So the holiday menu typically says, hello, we're closed for the holiday. And this is the script that I use. I ran this script about 2 weeks ago as soon as the US office published their 2014 holiday schedule. It's very easy to do. I run this once per year in each office. I talked about multilingual support earlier. Some of our overseas offices need to deal with at least 2 languages. The official office language in our office is always English, but when you get a call from the outside, you don't necessarily want to answer the call in English. With Asterisk's language support, I knew I had a lot of options there. And Asterisk includes 3 languages for prompts: French, Spanish, and Russian. But we needed more options. In Vienna, I needed German prompts. In South Africa, I wanted all the prompts for the entire system to be in South African English. And then we also wanted to offer Afrikaans as an option when somebody called in. In Singapore, we needed to offer Mandarin. So in Vienna, I actually found a full set of German prompts for free. And I found a set of South African English prompts as well. And then we recorded in our studio a subset of the voicemail prompts in Afrikaans so that it was sufficient for a caller to be able to leave a voicemail. You don't have to do the entire Asterisk prompt set. You can do a subset. And in Singapore, we recorded our welcome message in Mandarin. And then I adapted the dial plan so that in the auto attendant there is an option to flip languages. Now, we saved a lot of money by doing this on our own, and you can create a subset of your prompts, as I said, enough to navigate the voicemail. You can use Audacity and Socks to do this. We did it in our studio and got a very professional set. And this fellow, Benoit Frigon, has got a great tutorial on how to do this with Audacity and Socks, and it's brilliant. And if you're interested, I will post my entire presentation on Dropbox, so you guys don't have to jot all these addresses down. Now, I thought you might want to hear some of our prompts since they are kind of interesting. Let me see if I can do this. Where's my pointer? There we go. So here's a holiday menu in Afrikaans.
TWR verwelkom u. For English, press 1. Ons kantoor is tans gesluit vir 'n publieke vakansiedag.
Can we turn up the gain on that a little bit? Holiday menu in Mandarin.
谢谢你来电 TWR 环球媒体。今天是公共假期，如果你已经知道对方的支线。
And Austrian German will come out a little louder.
Willkommen bei TWR Europa. Bitte wählen Sie die Durchwahl Ihres gewünschten Gesprächspartners.
And the South African English voice prompts, they even had the extras. And I really enjoyed the TT Weasels.
Aardvarks have eaten our phone system.
So she says aardvarks. We would say aardvarks. She says aardvarks have eaten our phone system. So moving along. We have missionaries overseas in all of these countries, and they all have family and friends and supporters in the United States. So one of the things that I wanted to do with Asterisk is to give them the capability to call U.S. numbers without making an overseas call. And here's how it worked at first. So we've got a guy in Vienna, Matt Willie, and he needs to call a number in Alabama. So he uses a special prefix to call, and the call is sent to our server in North Carolina. And then the call is relayed from there out to the PSTN over long distance. And the caller ID that's presented to that cell phone in Alabama is the caller ID of the main US headquarters. Now the problem is, if that person can't pick up and just wants to do a callback, the guy in Vienna is just waiting. He doesn't ever get there. So, and the other problem is that not all of our overseas missionaries are on the receptionist phone list in North Carolina. So we needed a way to do a better caller ID. And so here's what I've done to solve this. Matt will dial the same number in the USA, and when that gets relayed to North Carolina's Asterisk server, the Asterisk server looks at the first 2 digits of Matt's caller ID, and then he substitutes a different DID for that caller ID before it's sent out to the cell phone in Alabama. And the way I've set up those DIDs is that there's, for each of the servers on the network, when the person calls back in to that particular number, it goes to the main auto attendant at the office where it came from. It's not as good as having a DID for every single number on our network, but it's a lot better than just going to the US headquarters. So at least now, when he gets to that auto attendant, he can find Matt in the directory. And again, I mentioned that I assigned a DID for each of the offshore servers. I do a database lookup. Asterisk database is great. I do a database lookup based on the first 2 digits of the extension, and I substitute in a new number and a new caller ID name field. And then this is the dial plan to do it. Basically, it just pulls the first 2 digits of the caller ID and does a lookup and substitution right here. So it's a very simple dial plan. We use SIP and EEX for our trunks, and so we have voice quality issues sometimes. We're writing on the public internet on our tunnels. So the problem is that not all of our regions have very sophisticated routers. Sometimes they are incapable of implementing QoS. Some of our ISPs have shared bandwidth or are running on pretty spotty service. The most challenging problem is a high latency SATCOM service that we have to Swaziland. I call Swaziland the land that the internet forgot. And many countries, bandwidth is just extremely expensive, like the Netherlands. It's crazy expensive to get bandwidth there. So what we've done is we've used G729 codecs where it makes sense, and we've also done some traffic shaping. We use traffic shaping on our link to Bonaire, and that has helped a great deal. Then we combine that with G729 and we're good. So we've pretty much solved this for the most part. The problem that remains is the 3,000 millisecond latency on the link to Swaziland, and that's just really, really difficult. Now, I've talked about all of the real serious business stuff that we've done, but we can have fun with Asterisk too, and I wanted to share you something that I had fun with. At TWR, we have an IT guy who's very, very smart, but he's like 60 years old, and he's very gruff. And you know the type, it's kind of like the old grouch. And there's a recording engineer that often needs help from this guy. And she's found that when she calls him and says, "Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope," that he just melts, and he'll do anything for her. So when this guy, and only this guy, gets a call from the recording engineer, who happens to be my wife, her caller ID shows up like this. And when he gets the call, he's already laughing. And she can get him to do anything. It's really pretty funny. And this is the dial plan that I used for this. So it's just, it's unique to his extension and her caller ID. And I just substitute the name field of the caller ID before I send the phone out, or the phone call out to his extension. Now, I promised you I'd give you some money-saving tips. And so here we go. You can get bargain servers, or you can repurpose your old Cisco Call Manager server. It doesn't have any residual value once it's 5 years old. I buy new hard drives for these servers, but this particular server is running in Guam, and it cost $80. And it's been running for 3 years. It's very, the old hardware is sufficient to run Asterisk as long as you're not running a lot of simultaneous, mixing a lot of calls. So this is operating at our Guam radio station. There's 15 people there, and it works great. We saved a lot of money reusing our existing VoIP phones. The Cisco 7900 series phones it's got a very rich feature set. You can crack the code. I'll help you if I can. If I can't help you, Warren Selby, who's talking next door, can help crack the code on these things. And we reused these, and it saved us a lot of money in our main office. In Canada, we already had Grandstream phones in place, so we just reused those. And this option can take a little bit more of your time, but it will save you hardware dollars. There are other options like open box specials. I've found places on eBay where a broker is selling a lot of phones, and you can get them for a song. Or you can reuse analog phones with an Astrobank. You have to weigh that and see what you want to do there. And if you're looking for a vendor who gives great customer service, this is my go-to guy. I just enjoy dealing with Michael White and the guys at E4 very much. You can save a lot of time if you standardize your phones. Every time you add a different phone type to the mix, it takes more work. You've got to build other ways to provision phones. If you can do that once for all the phones on your network, it's just a lot easier. In our main office, we have in the last couple of years, we've standardized on the new Cisco SPA phones, and we actually sold all of our Cisco 7900 phones, bought new Cisco SPA phones, and the net cost was about $5 a seat. SIP trunking can save you money. I don't recommend this for sites overseas, but in the US you can save a lot of money with SIP trunking. You can get a per minute rate that is very, very aggressive. And you will save hardware money because you're not buying the interfaces to connect to the telephone company. And there's a lot of vendors. Vitality, y'all are wearing a Vitality strap around your neck. They sell them. E4 sells SIP trunks, and again, but if you need really, really super reliable telephone lines, don't abandon your PSTN connections. DIDs, direct inward dial numbers, are really nice, but they are a recurring cost that you can save money on. I like my DID, but there's a limited number that we can afford. So they cost you money every month, and so you can save money with a simple auto attendant. All you need is a very simple thing to say. If you know the extension, you can press it at any time, or press 1 for our directory, for example. And you can record your own prompts. What we did in our headquarters was we had Allison Smith record our prompts, and she does a beautiful job for a very reasonable cost, and you can have a very polished PBX as a result of that. you can be penny wise and pound foolish. So there are some expenses that I think have a big payoff, and I wanted to share those with you too. First is training. And that comes in two ways. Training your staff on how to use Asterisk. Also, training your IT people on how to use and administer and build up Asterisk. The other training is training your staff on how to use the phones. Just make them more efficient. Buy new hard drives for your servers. It just is such a huge payoff. A new hard drive is very inexpensive and will make your system last a lot longer. For a real professional, polished feel, as I mentioned, get some professional voice prompts. Allison's minimum charge is extremely reasonable, and you'll probably have some headroom. She'll say, give me some more things to record for you. G729 codecs are very reasonable cost. If you're bandwidth limited, this is a very good expense to incur. And then I highly recommend PoE switches if you're using SIP phones, because it makes your entire system much more resilient. You back up, you put your core switch on a UPS, and then all of your phones will stay up during a power failure. So just to summarize, Asterisk has been a huge success for us at TWR, and we have nearly tripled the number of people that communicate over VoIP channels now. And we'll continue to save money as we go forward with recurring costs. But the most important thing is that our people are now connected to do their jobs more efficiently in South Africa, in Swaziland, in Austria, in Singapore, on Guam, on Bonaire, in Slovakia, and in the USA. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much, Cassius. That was great. Does anyone have any questions for Cassius? Okay.
I see in most of your sites you only have one server. Did you ever have to address the high availability issue if a server failed?
At the U.S. headquarters, we have a warm backup, and I sync the two servers together, so that if we have a failure, I just have to cycle the IP addresses on the server, and everybody will be back up. So the answer is yes. In one place. Now on Guam, because we had $80 servers, I just built an extra one and they put it in the closet. So if it goes down because of lightning or something like that, they just will slide a new one in. It's already configured.
Great. Was there another question over there?
Here.
Yes. Sorry.
You mentioned that if you wanted to have really reliable phone service to retain your connections to the PSTN and not go completely SIP. What's the trade-off if you're going SIP? Service interruptions, audio quality, both?
Yeah. Now I've used some SIP trunking at our headquarters. I've been experimenting with them for a couple of months. I'm not quite ready to abandon my PRI connection there. We did have a service interruption for about 4 hours a couple of months ago. And it was just, a router went down. The SIP networks are not as fault tolerant as the PRI network. They just aren't. And so in a lot of places, in Cary, North Carolina, it's a building code that you have to have a separate copper wired for your fire alarm. You're not allowed to run a fire alarm through a PBX at all. So I've got a separate pair that comes in for a fire alarm, and I don't even see that. But that tells you how reliable the public switch network is. It really is a very good network. It's just expensive. So.
Okay, great. Cassius will be around, I'm sure, for some more questions personally. Thanks so much, Cassius.
Thank
That was
you.
great. And thank you for the plug. That was very nice.
Oh, thank you.
Let's hear it
Okay.
for Cassius. Yeah.